Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the free Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts on them at 719-247-1313. That is the number to call or text in. And you can also tweet at me at Gingerly Tweets. What we have right now up at Ball Arena, when the playing surface is ice, and I have to qualify because there are other teams that play at Ball Arena that play on different surfaces. For the team that plays in Ball Arena on the ice, we have an absolute wagon right now. The Colorado Avalanche are rolling. And the conundrum always comes up this time of year, and it's come up the last couple of years with some of our local teams. How important is home ice, home court? How important is that? And how far are you willing to go to get it? The Avalanche, as you know, don't have a ton of upward mobility. They are also not in a position where they're really at the risk of dropping anywhere. We have known for weeks that it's, unless barring something completely unforeseen, it's going to be Dallas and Colorado in the first round. Whereas with the Denver Nuggets, as Michael Malone has pointed out, they could drop to the play-in if they don't win their fair share of games. Which means they could easily drop to 5 and not have home court in the first round. So with the Avalanche, they don't have as much room to go up or go down. Really, it's where is this series against Dallas going to start? Where is it going to finish? That's really what we're trying to find out over the last, for the Colorado Avalanche now, 10 games. But that alone, just that one thing that they can do, can't really drop, can't win the division, just home ice against the Dallas Stars seems to be enough of a motivating factor for this team, because look at the way they are playing. They have won 8 of their last 10 as they made light work of the Red Wings last night. Now, Brock Nelson said before the game that the biggest key for the Avs is they had to match the desperation of Detroit. And that's also something that comes into play late in the season. Who has more to play for? And who's going to come out more motivated? Well, Detroit's fighting for their playoff lives. Right? They're a couple of points back of the second wild card in the East. There's a decent chance that they're not going to make the playoffs at all. So how are you going to match that desperation level? The Avalanche clearly did, because they have this thing to chase. They want home ice. They want a potential Game 7 against Dallas in a series that no matter which way you think it's going to go, you think it's going to be a long series, right? That apparently is enough of a carrot to dangle in front of this team. Because I thought, yeah, JT Compher scores first, but I didn't think that the Avs came out slow by any stretch of the imagination. And if you think that's not a big thing to chase, how could the Avs not want home ice against Dallas or against any other team? right? They've won now 10 straight at home. They've historically been very good at Ball Arena. Yes, when it comes to the Nuggets and the Avs, there's that 5,280 feet thing. So how could the Avs not want to get home ice? How could the Nuggets not want to get home court advantage? And I've always conceded that. But here comes the issue. And this was front and center last year in the second half of Game 7 against Minnesota for the Denver Nuggets. Michael Malone's pursuit of the top seed wore out Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Minnesota did their part as well, but we saw a tired basketball team that was going full bore through 82 games, chasing this thing, home court advantage. So I understand why teams would want it, especially teams that call Colorado home, but is it worth the risk of injury or wearing your team out when it comes playoff time? And clearly the Denver Nuggets have learned their lesson because Nikola Jokic, he may play tonight. He's been upgraded to questionable, but he's been out for a string of games. Jamal Murray's been in and out of the lineup. Now Michael Porter's on the injury report. Aaron Gordon hasn't been consistently on the court. So clearly Michael Malone is, I'm not going to bring out the LM phrase, load management, but they're certainly erring on the side of caution when it comes to these guys. We can at least say that. If you want to go a step further and say they're load managing Tim Bontemps, then I would disagree, but I'm not here to get in an argument about that. Clearly, they're approaching, whatever you want to call it, they're approaching the end of the season a little bit differently than they did last year. Whereas the Colorado Avalanche seem like they're going full tilt towards trying to get home ice in that first round series against Dallas. So it's reasonable for one to wonder, is Jared Bednar risking the same thing that Michael Malone risked last year? Because I wonder that myself. But you don't need to worry, because he's not. Nathan MacKinnon, in the last 3 games, has played less than 20 minutes in regulation. The Montreal game went into overtime, so that was extenuating circumstances. But the last 3 games, Nathan MacKinnon has played less than 20 minutes on the ice. And this is a guy that's 22, 23 minutes. Kel McCarr, just one more thing on Nathan MacKinnon. You would have to go back 19 games till you get to a third game in which he played less than 20 minutes in regulation. Kel McCarr has had about 3 minutes shaved off of his ice time. Devon Taves, the same way. Jared Bednar is actually ramping these guys down. He's actually protecting them. He's looking out for their fitness level, their energy level, whatever you want to call it, going into the playoffs. He's ramping them down. They're not playing as much. But this is where Jared Bednar is getting the best of both worlds. Because right now, with the depth that his team has, he can keep Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and Devon Taves off the ice for longer, right? Couple fewer shifts a night. It adds up over the course of 10, 15 games. But he can also still reasonably expect his team to produce. So he's having it both ways. You can't say that about Michael Malone. Right? And for the record, I think that Michael Malone is doing the right thing. But what pulls at him is what you saw the other night against Chicago, what you saw against Portland. The Denver Nuggets, this is where depth comes into play. Once the playoffs roll around, I think it is a little less important than we make it out to be. But during the regular season, especially when you're trying to save your best players, this is where depth can become important. And the Denver Nuggets do not have the depth to be able to consistently keep their level of play up. If you're depending on Peyton Watson and Russell Westbrook and Christian Brown and DeAndre Jordan, there's a decent chance every night you're going to lose. But because of the way the Avs are built and bringing in Brock Nelson and Ryan Lindgren and Charlie Coyle, and to go back to what they did in the goalie room, Jared Bednar can still reasonably expect that his team will win when they step out onto the ice. And herein lies the vision from Chris McFarland, or at least part of it. He saw that Nathan McKinnon was ranking right there with a bunch of defensemen in terms of on-ice time. And he saw that as, I think, a potential issue for Nathan McKinnon as the playoffs wear on, but also a sign from Jared Bednar that he doesn't have the depth that he believes he needs. So Chris McFarland goes out and makes all the moves that he's making. And we're seeing this vision play out. And not just that the Avalanche have depth to be able to keep McKinnon and Makar off the ice for a little bit longer each night. They're also, because of the depth that they have the ability to play a style that doesn't tax them. Here's what I mean by this. Because of the depth they have at center, they're not turning the puck over as much. They're keeping possession in the offensive zone. They're not having to race back towards their own goal because they gave it away. They're not having to defend as much in their own zone. The O-zone time for the Avalanche has gone up over the last couple of weeks. That is an easier game to play. That expends less energy when you have the puck. So the position that Jared Bednar finds himself in, that Michael Malone wishes he was in, was, yeah, I can throw my stars back a little bit, and I could still reasonably expect that we win. And we still pursue that thing that we are pursuing. So Jared Bednar right now has got to be loving life. That he's been able to mind both things. The pursuit of something while also making sure that his best players are ready to go for the playoffs. Now, the ultimate question is, will it pay off? Look, as long as they're throttling Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar down, that's paying off. That's good. That's a good thing, regardless of where they end up in the standings. Will they get the thing that they're chasing? Avs and Stars right now, if they both continue, and the Stars haven't been playing poorly, but the Avs are 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. If these two teams continue their current pace through the last 10 games for the next 10 games, which is a big ask for the Avs to win 8 out of 10, just like they just did. But if they keep it up, they would end up tied with Dallas in points. And because they have the head-to-head tiebreaker, they would get it. The problem is, the big hitch in all of this is that Dallas still has 2 games in hand. So you would need Dallas to fall off a little bit or squander the opportunity that they have with 2 games in hand on the Avs. But look, you don't know yet. Like, it's still out there. It's still possible. So if it's still possible and you do it while being mindful of the amount of time you're playing your best players, go for it. If we get to a week left in the season and Dallas has cashed in their games in hand and they're out of reach, then okay, maybe we see the Avs maybe not look like they have much to play for. But right now, it's still everything that was available to them a couple of weeks ago is still available to them. Clearly, it's a motivating factor for them. And if Jared Bednar can rely a little bit less on number 29 and number 8 to get it done, all the better. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Avs win last night. Of course, whenever the Red Wings and Avs meet up, we get super nostalgic. I have some thoughts on the renewal of that long-gone rivalry. We'll get to it a little bit later. Just getting going, though, on this Wednesday edition of the show. Coming up next, the person that continues to stir the most stuff up when it comes to the Denver Broncos, Kay Adams, is at it again. I'll tell you what she did next on Extra Sports 1300. Kay Adams has carved out quite the niche for herself in Broncos country, hasn't she? Every time Kay Adams speaks to any member of the Broncos organization, it makes headlines. You notice that? Every time she talks to Sean Payton, when she was out at training camp with the Denver Broncos, there was headlines that came out of it. But she always seems like, and I don't know, I don't watch her enough to know if that's just what she does or if it's just something that she does with the Denver Broncos. But it always seems like every week, every other week, there is a discussion that comes up out of an interview with somebody Broncos related in Kay Adams. And we have ours for this week. Von Miller is having a golf tournament. And Kay Adams was interviewing him. And he was talking about some of his former Bronco teammates that were there and talking about how cool it is to be around all of them again. And Kay Adams, being the great interviewer that she is, pressed him a little bit, asking if he would like to be back with the Denver Broncos. Of course, Von Miller's still a free agent. Von said, quote, "I've always loved blue and orange. You just have to see. It's a fun time right now for me, my career. You just have to wait and see. Take it one day at a time." It won't go away. And to be fair, we don't need Kay Adams to bring this up because we've talked at least once a year about the idea of Von Miller coming back. Every time he plays the Broncos, we talk about it. Every time off season rolls around, we talk about it. So let's talk about it. I understand why Von Miller is interested in a reunion with the Denver Broncos. And it has to warm your heart if you're a Broncos fan that Von Miller loves this organization so much. And it's not dissimilar from other people. Look at Peyton Manning. Right? Look at Jake Plummer. Look at any number of former Denver Broncos that fall in love with the city, the organization, the fan base, and that speaks well on you if you're a Broncos fan. You make that kind of thing happen. You make these athletes feel this way. So kudos to you. I don't understand why the Broncos would do this for any other reason than nostalgia. Von Miller is quite removed from the player that the Broncos traded to the Rams. And he's getting further away from that player every day. And you have a group of pass rushers right now that you feel great about. Sometimes you bring in a veteran to help lead a young group of players. And I think that would be many people's argument for bringing in Von Miller. What a great mentor, what a great role model, what a great leader to have in that room with Jonah Ellis and Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. But I kind of feel like you do that if you have a group that are young and you feel good about, but you haven't seen them produce yet. Right? Nick Bonito had an awesome season last year. The pass rush group for the Denver Broncos, to me, is just fine. And if you're bringing in Von Miller, you're just making a very crowded room as it is more crowded. Let me pose the question in this fashion. Would you like to see Von Miller in a Broncos uniform next year, or would you like to see more of Jonah Ellis? I know what way I would answer. I think that the Broncos, especially at that position group, are not at the I think they're at the point where they want difference makers. And do they need a difference maker at that position? To me, and it's no disrespect towards Von Miller, it's actually a compliment to the group that George Paton has been able to assemble. I think they're good there. They're young. I want to see more of these guys. I don't want, vibes and in a walk down memory lane to hamper the development of Jonah Ellis because even Vance Joseph can't get all these guys on the field all the time. I understand the emotional reaction. But the Broncos don't need him. And I could argue just as much for Von Miller being sort of a hindrance, not because of who he is as a player or a person, but just the fact that it's another mouth to feed. The Broncos have been very selective when it comes to what they are looking at in free agency. It's been very deliberate, very specific. And adding Von Miller, it would just be for nostalgia, which I think a year ago, 2 years ago, I could see the benefit of that. Right? This is a playoff team. This is a team that's looking to take the next step. If you are assessing Von Miller and don't think that he would immediately be the first or second best guy in that room and would move the needle a little bit more towards supplanting Kansas City or, moving up in the AFC pecking order, then why do you do it? And I'm sorry, we're just getting to the point where Von Miller in his production doesn't say that about him anymore. I think he's just, I don't know an exact team, but I think he's a better fit somewhere that has a need for a pass rusher. But maybe they already have one. Broncos got like 3. I think they have a good thing going, and I don't think the benefit would outweigh some of the potential pitfalls of it. But when Von Miller ends up retiring, he should sign that one-day contract with the Denver Broncos, and they should plan that season to put his name in the ring. They should probably even consider retiring his number. The Denver Broncos can give Von Miller an infinite amount of love in his post-playing career. He said he was interested in being a GM, make him a special assistant. Like, the Denver Broncos, I think, are going to do a lot for Von Miller once he is done playing football. But they already did him a favor by trading him to LA when they did. They don't need to do him another one by bringing him in because he has yet to find work at the expense of some of these young, up-and-coming, really talented pass rushers that they already have. I don't think they need the guidance. I don't think they need a role model. And I certainly don't think they need more competition. It's great to hear that from Von Miller. But it's one of those things. It's almost like the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Like, some things are just better to always wish, right? To always long for and never actually attain. It's okay to wish that Von Miller one day maybe would come back to the Denver Broncos. It's okay to wish that maybe one day the Red Wings can go back to the Western Conference and we can really reignite the Avalanche Red Wings rivalry. Some things are just better as that. Nebulous hopes that maybe one day something. Because I think the reality may not line up. But if you think he could be a difference maker on the field this year, above what they have, more so than another year of Jonah Ellis, that's the comparison I would make. Could Von Miller be a bigger difference maker than Jonah Ellis in year 2? And is that something that the Broncos still need to be shopping for? I say no. I'll take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Speaking of former Denver Broncos, but one that no one around here wants back, was Russell Wilson kind of trolling the Denver Broncos and announcing he was going to the Giants? Get into it next. Join me Friday as they take the show back to Trainwreck for the round of 16. Come by, enjoy some outstanding food and beverage, take advantage of 2 acres of indoor and outdoor entertainment. And it's supposed to be a gorgeous day on Friday. And then make sure you stick around to watch the games on their stadium-sized TV. That's this Friday, 3 to 5 at Trainwreck at 812 South Sierra Madre. Russell Wilson yesterday, the big news is that he ended up going to the New York Giants. Try to make sense of that coming up here momentarily. But he posted something on social media that I found a little bit interesting, and I had an initial reaction to it. See if you do. So he tweets out a picture of MetLife Stadium, home of the Giants. And he says, been here before, can't wait to do it again. Hashtag MetLife. And then tags the Giants. Of course, he's referring to the Super Bowl that he won there. Remind me again who he beat in that game? Is the honorable Russell Wilson slinging mud at one of his former employers? Probably not, but it's a good way to segue into what I really want to talk about, which is why are the Giants doing this? I thought about this probably longer than I should have. I have other responsibilities in my life, but I keep coming back to the Giants doing a bit of CYA here. A bit of, if Shedeur is not there at 3, we got to have somebody. And now you can look at it and say, how much better is Russell Wilson than Jameis Winston? And I get it. They're not going to be demonstrably better. But you think that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane want to stake their future careers on the Jameis Winston experience as their starting quarterback? As much as Russell Wilson is past his prime, as much as Russell Wilson isn't getting the Giants any higher up in that division, that you expect the Cowboys to be better than they were this year with Dak Prescott coming back. The Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champions. The Washington Commanders are the now everybody's darling. Yeah. The Giants are still going to be the worst team in that division. But you think that they want to be, well, and Brian Daboll doesn't have hair on his head, but metaphorically speaking, do you think he wants to pull his hair out every week with the Jameis Winston experience? At least with Russell Wilson, what you're going to get, and Sean Payton might interject here and say, I was pulling my hair out when Russell Wilson was playing. But the interceptions is what I'm talking about. Like, Russell Wilson will take his sacks, no doubt about it, but he won't turn the ball over as much as Jameis Winston. And with that patented moon ball, that's going to fit Malik Neighbors pretty well, and that's a guy that you need to start thinking about keeping happy. So it's not a good move. It's not going to move. I'm just saying this feels like, at least just in case Shedeur Sanders is not available, let's go get Russ. That's the only rationale that I can get to. Because if it's about, and even then I get there and I'm like, well, why wouldn't you take Aaron Rodgers then? Because if you ask me who would give my team, with all their deficiencies, and believe me, The quarterbacks we're talking about are incredibly flawed in their own ways. But if the idea is we just got to get the best quarterback we possibly can of a bad group and try to win as many games as we can so we don't get fired, Aaron Rodgers would be the better answer to that question than Russell Wilson. But that has to be the decision that they made. So that's their thing. I'm much more interested, though, in if they have a thought about what's going to happen in front of them. Because to me, before they signed Russell Wilson, everything they were doing made sense. You're sitting there at 3. Shador's probably going to be there. You get Jameis to back him up and be his biggest cheerleader. It's a good environment for Shador Sanders to go into. Jameis Winston's a great teammate. And in no way, shape, or form is going to threaten him for the starting job. And he's going to be okay if he's a backup. Like, there's all these reasons why Jameis Winston is a great backup idea for Shador Sanders. But Russell Wilson's not a good backup idea. What do the Giants think? Because I don't know that they know anything. Because I don't think anybody knows anything. But what do they think? Because this move, more than anything else, tells me that they believe there is at least a decent chance that Shador Sanders is not getting to them. Now, does that mean that the Browns are going to take him or that somebody's going to jump them? So let's go down that rabbit hole. I don't know if Deion Sanders is going to want Shador to play in Cleveland. Don't forget that Deion Sanders has made it very clear that he wants to have some influence on where Shador goes. Or at least he's not afraid to wield that if it comes to it. Does he want Shador to go to Cleveland? To me, I look at it and I say, you could really argue that Cleveland is a better landing spot. You've seen what Stefanski can do with every quarterback not named Deshaun Watson. Yeah, there is tumult in the Browns organization, but there is in the Giants. I guess Neighbors is better than anybody the Browns have, but Jerry Jeudy had a great year last year. Both divisions are extremely difficult. The only thing that I can unequivocally say about the Giants is that it's New York. And maybe that's the big driver here. Or he's buddies with Malik Neighbors. But if there's a team that wants to trade up to where the Browns are, and according to Josina Anderson, the Browns are willing to move back, the question has to be asked, why not the Giants then? Why don't the Giants just move up? Flip-flop. I think that the Giants have a feeling that one way or another, Shador Sanders is not going to be available to them. And they're covering themselves a little bit, giving themselves another option in Russell Wilson. But the more I think about it, the more I can't, there's no sound reason for doing this. There really isn't. Because, well, we wanted another veteran in case Shador's not available. Then why not Aaron Rodgers? Well, we don't think we think somebody's going to trade up to 2 and take Shador. Why don't you trade up to 2? You're at 3. The only team it would be easier to trade to 2 from is the Titans. Why don't you just trade up and get Shador? But again, we have to know who we're dealing with here. There are organizations, and it wasn't that long ago that the Broncos were one of those organizations, but they're not anymore, where you will drive yourself mad trying to understand what they are doing. Because we all of us saw, the type of decision-making that goes on behind closed doors at the Giants facility. It doesn't always make sense. It rarely makes sense. They paid Daniel Jones and not Saquon Barkley. They let Saquon Barkley walk. They drafted Daniel Jones. They don't do a lot of stuff that makes sense. So why should signing Russell Wilson days after you bring in Jameis Winston make any more sense than anything else that they do? But that's the best I can come up with, is that they're protecting themselves at least in the event that Shador doesn't get there at 3. Why they can't make it so, you would think it would be well within. It's not like it's a division rival in front of them. What do the Browns care if the Giants jump up to number 2? If they don't want Shador? Or are they trying to talk themselves into, oh, we'll be better off if we get Travis Hunter? Or Abdul Carter. Look at what the Steelers did. Again, can't get there, can you? Because it's an organization that makes dumb decisions all the time. And it's one that doesn't make any sense to me. But the dominoes are falling, whether we like the dominoes or not, they're falling. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, find themselves in a situation they didn't want to be in. You know, Mike Tomlin has this saying, we want volunteers, not hostages. And the biggest hostage taker in the National Football League is Aaron Rodgers. And by their indecisiveness, if nothing else, well, let's call it that, guess who their only option is? Mason Rudolph is not an option. It would be the height of hubris for the Pittsburgh Steelers to think that, oh, we'll be fine. They can't, even the Steelers can't think that. So now Aaron Rodgers has gotten exactly what he wants. He has at least one organization in the NFL that desperately needs his help. And that, more than anything else, that's what Aaron Rodgers wants. Aaron Rodgers wants to be wanted. And I don't see any other option available to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have allowed themselves to be taken hostage by Aaron Rodgers because they can't seriously trot out there week 1 with Mason Rudolph in the AFC North. So, the Pittsburgh Steelers, stop me if you've heard this before. Pittsburgh Steelers bungle quarterback situation. But If they do end up landing Aaron Rodgers, they can certainly replicate what they did last year, at the very least, which is clearly what they want, clearly what they're aiming for. They don't have an eye on the future. They're just worried about right now. And right now, Aaron Rodgers, with DK Metcalf on one side, George Pickens on the other, TJ Watt, Mike Tomlin as the head coach, they could keep their winning season streak alive. Not saying it's where their priorities should lie, but clearly they do. And with Aaron Rodgers, they would be able to accomplish that, I think. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, it's all great to reminisce about yesteryear when it comes to the Red Wings and Avalanche, but perhaps that rivalry is best left in the past. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports on a Wednesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you listening to the show. Appreciate you watching the show, which you can do on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. Coming up, why I think the consensus that mock drafters have right now surrounding the Denver Broncos should tell you to go in a different direction. But first, the Avalanche last night, only one of two meetings, as we have grown very familiar with when it comes to the Detroit Red Wings, kicked up some old feelings for sure. And no matter what conference the two teams are in, it will always feel good if you're an Avs fan to beat the Red Wings and vice versa. And last night it was the Avalanche coming out on top in resounding fashion by a final of 5-2. And I was watching Altitude's post-game show while I was doing some work and had it on in the background. But they had Milan Hajduk on. And he was asked a question by one of the fans there at that place that they have there for their late night studio looking thing. Anyway, somebody asked Milan Hajduk, because this has been a big question, and it's a question surrounding Dallas now with Mikko Rantanen in the mix. Does that become the next great Avs rivalry? And somebody asked Milan Hajduk if there will be another rivalry like that. And he said no. No, there will never be. And I think he's right. But I think you take it one step further. And I got a text in from Steve, who says, outstanding effort by the Avs last night, 10 in a row at home. However, I sure do miss the intensity and rivalry from yesteryear. And I do too. I mean, it helped grow hockey in this state, not just because the Avs won, but I think the Avs-Red Wings rivalry helped grow the popularity of the game as well. And you had that villain. But I think about it almost every time that those two teams meet up. I almost wonder if it actually is better that Detroit moved. Because the alternate reality of Detroit staying in the Western Conference is that the rivalry, we have a discussion about how it doesn't mean what it used to mean, but because it just fizzles. Because at one point or another, Detroit's down, and they've been down a little bit more recently than the Avs are. But think about it. Even if they would have stayed in the West, look at these two franchises' trajectories. How many more? I mean, we didn't even have any playoff matchups between the two teams for like 4 or 5 years before they moved. So part of me thinks that as much as we miss it and as much as we wish that feeling would come around again about any team, in some ways it's actually good that Detroit moved to the East. Because I just don't think that the rivalry would have perpetuated for years to come. There would have been a time where the Avs and the Red Wings say they're even in the same division, and you'd be like, yeah, but the Avs are good. The Red Wings aren't. This isn't, part of what Milan Hajduk was talking about is the physicality, right? They're still fighting in the NHL, but not like that. Like the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry is that of NHL yesteryear. can't do half the stuff that those teams did in those playoff series. Guys would be suspended for months. You know, I just, it's almost better this way. I've really come to believe that. Because you look at other rivalries in sports and they don't keep up. There are some exceptions, like Packers Bears, I think, keeps up, but the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry was because of the big stage that they met on, not just because of geography well, it wasn't geography, actually, because Michigan's quite a bit away from Colorado. But you get my point. Like, the Bears-Packers rivalry is a little bit different. And you even see there, like, the Packers have just beat down the Bears year after year after year. It's almost like the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry left on a high note and did the Costanza thing. We wanted more when it was over. But maybe it's better that we want more and never got more. And the best thing is nostalgia anyway. That's what we love nostalgia so much. And this allows us to be nostalgic. Because there's just not enough games between these two teams to, remember. I don't really remember a Red Wings Avs game since 2008. I mean, vividly anyway. I just wonder if the Red Wings remained with the Avalanche, considering some of the really down times that both of those organizations have had, if we'd be having the same conversation, but in a different way, and we'd be saying, man, I really wish that these two teams would be good at the same time. I wish the rivalry was what it once was. I think it was inevitable that it was going to fizzle out. So maybe it's better that it's not, our memory of Red Wings Avs is not sullied by many years residing in the same division or the same conference in a bunch of forgettable games because either the Avalanche were bad or the Red Wings are bad. But Milan Hajduk is right. Like, whether you take it from the standpoint of that the Avs will never have that with another team, or the Avs Red Wings rivalry will never be that again, he's right. I think he's right on both counts. But I do think that Dallas has the ability to be understanding all the factors in modern NHL with the amount of churn on these rosters and how much coaches are hired and fired and all this kind of stuff. I think Dallas could be as good of a rivalry as you would be able to get in the end, but it's way different. Even this, whatever this between Dallas and Colorado turns into, they met last year, they're going to meet this year. Whatever it turns into with Mikko Rantanen in a Dallas sweater for the foreseeable future, it's not even going to be what it was with those Avs teams and those Stars teams back in the day. So I think the Red Wings Avalanche rivalry is reflective of a great time in the NHL, an amazing time in the NHL, but of past era that is never to be revisited. And maybe that's the best place to put frequent meetings between the Avs and Red Wings. But it allows us, when we have a game like last night, to reminisce and to remember how awesome it was. Because it was awesome. It was so good. Better theater than any other Colorado team has had with any other team. Broncos, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, Rockies, give me a break. Nuggets and anybody. That Red Wings, Avs, better than Nuggets, Lakers. That's not a hot take, right? We're not going to. We don't need to get into this, do we? Do we have to get into this and rank Avalanche, Red Wings the best? The stakes, the pure hatred that existed. And Michael Malone was smart when he stoked the fires when it comes to the Lakers. Like, he's a student of history. He knows that that's a very strong emotion to evoke, to bring up all this stuff about, take that L on the way out. And he talks about the number of Laker fans that are in Denver and the who's your daddy stuff. Like, he knows he's playing up that emotion, and it has made the Lakers and the Nuggets a bit spicier of late. But it will never be. It hasn't been. It has never been and will never be what Avs Red Wings was. And I don't think that the Broncos have had any time in their history where you could look at another team the same way you look at the Red Wings. You'd better answer that than me, I suppose. We'll take your thoughts, 719-247-1313. But the bigger story, the more consequential aspect of last night is just how good the Avs have been. And the fact that Jared Bednar isn't pushing Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar to the brink of exhaustion to continue to rack up wins. And I talked about at the start of the show, the depth that this team now has is allowing Jared Bednar to do both. To keep an eye on the postseason and make sure his guys are right and ready, while also pushing to try and get something that they value, which is home ice in the first round against Dallas. But you saw it up close and personal once again last night. Like, everything that the Avs have done is about Valerian Nichushkin. He has been the cog in all of this. Why they did everything they did. Moving on from Mikko Rantanen, bringing in Brock Nelson, getting rid of Casey Middlestad. All of this, everything that they have done hinges on Valerian Nichushkin. They see his style of play and they say, we need more of that. So they get a Charlie Coyle. They get a Brock Nelson. They say that's the type of style of play that is going to help us win in the postseason. And nobody does it better than Valerian Nichushkin. And you just, every day you get reminded again, oh, this is why they stuck by this guy. This is why they went through all of it. You see how, not just how important they think he is, you see how important he is. But look at their record with Valerian Nichushkin back in the lineup. Like, it's not, I'm not a big wins, losses affixed to players guy, but it is an indicator of how well a team plays. And last night, Valerian Nichushkin was really good. Nathan MacKinnon still on top of the point standings. Here's another thing, too, on that subject about Jared Bednar kind of balancing between pushing for home ice while also making sure that Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar specifically are physically right for the playoffs. This is the right way to do it. This is the ideal way to do it. The NBA should look at load management like this, where it's instead of just flat out resting a guy and not having him play, just play him fewer minutes. But I know why they don't do that, because you have two different ways of tabulating stats. In the NHL, it's a gross total, right? It's not Nathan McKinnon's point per game. It's just his total points, his total goals, his total assists. When you're dealing with totals, as long as you could be somewhat productive, and you're also dealing with lower volume, right? Where you're talking about 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, maybe 4 if they go crazy, right? But the NBA will never load manage in that way because it's an average sport. It's points per game. It's steals per game. It's rebounds per game. And if you play, it's going to count against you. And if you don't play, then your numbers stay the same. I mean, that may be an unsatisfactory answer to most people because it is about stats and it is about, all-star appearances and things like that. But that's why. Because there's no other reason why an NBA team can't just play their best players fewer minutes. Why can't Michael Malone shave a couple minutes off of Nikola Jokic's time? Or Jamal Murray's or Aaron Gordon's? Why does he have to just completely sit them out? And maybe the Nuggets are a bad example because we know that Nikola Jokic is injured, but just apply that to any. The Clippers, the Lakers, why not just play LeBron fewer minutes? Keep him in the lineup, keep him there if you need him. But they don't do that because it would hurt his averages. Avs win at 5-2, 8-1-1 in their last 10, unbeaten on home ice in their last 10. So you could see why the Colorado Avalanche would very much like to not only start their series with Dallas at home, but potentially end it in a game 7 at home. Coming up next, one thing I have learned from Sean Payton over the last couple of years. When all the mock drafters are coming to a consensus, that's when you turn and run away. I do enjoy whenever the Avs and the Red Wings link up. And I think that the players kind of lean into it as much as they can because they understand what it means to the fan base. Like, what do any of these guys care about what happened in the 90s? But they can tell that it means a lot. They get a lot of questions and that, look, they know a lot of them grew up rooting for the Colorado Avalanche. So, and that's appreciated. I know that they really don't care, but the fact that they'll play along, they don't have to do that, and they do. And it's appreciated, I think. Aaron Texan, Avs Red Wings was the greatest rivalry in sports history. Closest in my lifetime was Cavs Warriors, with competing for championships and number of Hall of Famers, but the physicality of 90s hockey pushed Avs and Wings to a level I don't think will ever be equaled. I certainly don't think anything from here on out in the NHL is going to match that for the Avs or anybody. I think Celtics Lakers is calling you on line one, Aaron. But in terms of lifetime, because look, not old enough for Bill Russell or Jerry West. So I understand the weight of Celtics Lakers, but I didn't live through it. You know, it's funny because of hockey's place in the world, a hockey rivalry will never be brought up. But since you're a more well-rounded sports fan, you do lump it in. Gosh, in my life, Cavs Warriors was very good. Right? Best player in the world against the best team in the world. Arguably the best team ever versus arguably the best player ever. Like that stretch, that was really good. And we can appreciate it. And the time we're like, again. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, in Colorado sports, nothing. I'm sorry, nothing. No rivalry in Colorado sports had those kind of stages, those kind of clashes, with those stakes for as long as Avs Red Wings did. But yeah, last 40 years, it would be really tough to top Avs Red Wings. The only thing that people can hold against it is it's hockey, so it's not as widely accepted. Right? There are plenty of people that know very little to nothing about the Avs and the Red Wings. But if you include hockey into the conversation and can speak about it, it's hard to hold anything in the last 30 or 40 years over that. And certainly in Colorado sports, we've never seen anything and we'll never see anything like Avs Red Wings. Chris says, oh, come on, best rivalry ever has been and always be Michigan, Ohio State football. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like ever. And I think Aaron was being a bit hyperbolic, but I think his bigger point was in his life. Right? All time, like, yeah, Ohio State, Michigan. Also, college rivalries are kind of a different breed. So, yeah, Ohio State, Michigan, Celtics, Lakers, North Carolina, Duke, I'll say this. Certainly you could put more college, you would consider more college rivalries than pro sports rivalries, and that's going to be even more so moving forward. Although are we going to lose the college? Right. The reason we won't, and the reason we won't is because it's always been about the brand. And it's kind of my point about Avs Red Wings. Those two brands don't mean as much for long periods of time as they did in the 90s. Right. And the players change, and some of the animosity that was there was gone when Claude Lemieux and Hatcher and all of these, McCarty and all these guys went away. With college sports, it's always been more about the brand. So even in the transfer portal era, as long as there are players on Ohio State and players on Michigan and players on Duke and players on North Carolina, those rivalries are going to continue. Because it was never about any individual player. Which I can say with the Avs and the Red Wings, it was very much about the players that were involved. Claude Lemieux wears a Whalers sweater and puts Chris Draper into the bench wearing a Penguins sweater. That rivalry gets ignited. You know what I mean? That it was more player based. And that's why I say in professional sports, Celtics, Lakers, because to their credit, both of those organizations have sustained enough success to where there are big meetings to perpetuate the rivalry for years to come. But so often the great rivalries that we see in pro sports really has more to do with certain players that happen to play for those teams. Because I just don't, Avs Red Wings, it's not, I don't think for the Avs players it's a visceral thing when they see the Red Wings. For Ohio State players, for Michigan players, for Duke, for North Carolina, it's a visceral reaction because it's always been about the brand. But yeah, Avs Red Wings, I think Avs Red Wings, that stretch of time should be higher on most people's rivalry list than it probably is. But it can acknowledge that over the course of sports history, so there are plenty of other rivalries that would trump that. It's good to reminisce, though. I don't like what's going on with these mock drafts. Yankees, Red Sox. Just texting. Good one. Dodgers, Giants. Cubs, Cardinals. When you could truly just make it about the brands or the teams and not any particular players, I think that's what makes the rivalry that much better. I'm more of a pro sports guy, so I'd probably lean Yankees, Red Sox, or Celtics, Lakers. But that's just, I think rivalries too are a little bit your preference. If you're more of a college sports or it's even, then how could you look at Ohio State and Michigan or North Carolina and Duke and not put that above a lot of pro sports rivalries? But I think, once again, to Aaron's point, if you want to talk about just in your lifetime or talk about a stretch of a decade, 15 years, whatever it is, and talk about the ferocity of a rivalry, there's few that have encapsulated that in the amount of time that the Avs and Red Wings did. and certainly for Colorado sports. Nothing matches it. Actually, let me take a break before it will be a clean break, and then we can get into the latest mock drafts. I'm sure you've seen this. There is a bit of a consensus building. And when I say a bit, I mean there is a consensus building about where the Broncos are going to go at 20. And I'm not so sure that they're going in that direction. That's next. One last thing on the rivalry. I found a rivalry that you can compare to Avs Red Wings that I think would put it in the right group, because it's not like, I think there will be some people that will say Blackhawks Red Wings all time is a greater rivalry than Avs Red Wings. I don't know that I would say that, but there are some, and think of the Canadian teams and how long they've been at it and everything, Leafs and Canadiens. And so the example that I would use from the NBA, how about Kings Lakers? Like, it's not Lakers Celtics, right? But for that time, right, when it was Shaq and it was Kobe and it was Weber and Christie and Divock and everything that happened there, like, that was a shorter lived rivalry that burned pretty bright for a stretch of time, but would not, in the grand scheme of things, be one of the top rivalries. Certainly it wouldn't be the top rivalry if you asked a Laker fan. But with Avs Red Wings, for the Avs, I mean, they haven't been around that long. Red Wings have, and perhaps there's a greater historic rival to Detroit than the Avs. But for that stretch, like 96 to 02, doesn't get it. No, I don't know that any rivalry in my lifetime could match that just 6 or 7 year stretch. That's what made it so special. All right. So what I am thinking here about the Broncos in the draft next month, either the Denver Broncos have become incredibly predictable or quite the opposite, and we are in for quite the surprise in about a month. Here's why I say this. Have you noticed, if you look through mock drafts, everybody has them taking Amarion Hampton, the running back out of North Carolina, with their pick at 20. Everybody. And this is on the heels of when everybody had them taking Colston Loveland. But then, of course, they got Evan Ingram. And part of why people think that the Broncos are so predictable and so easy to guess who they're going to take is actually a compliment to the Broncos, right? You look around and you're like, there aren't these massive glaring holes that they have to fill, right? They're not in the quarterback business. They got more pass rushers than they know what to do with. I just spent last hour talking about how they should turn down Von Miller's services. Like, no, we don't need you. We're good. So that's part of it, right? Because you went into the offseason and you said they need a tight end, which ideally would fit that Joker role, wide receiver, safety, inside linebacker, running back. Right? Those were the needs that people identified for the Denver Broncos. Well, they get Tufonga, they get Greenlaw, they get Ingram. So there's 3 off the list, conceivably. And they haven't added anyone to the running back room when Sean Payton has publicly said they need to add to that room. So I understand why people are connecting the dots that they're connecting and projecting what they're projecting. And I really don't have a problem with Amarion Hampton. You know who Amarion Hampton is? It's kind of like Javonte Williams. And I know it's easy to go there because they're both North Carolina, but look at them play. I watched enough North Carolina film once they drafted Javonte Williams to kind of find out a little bit more about this guy, or as much as I could. And now I'm watching some Omarion Hampton film. I'm like, they look similar. And one thing that Omarion Hampton has that I think is very important, he can pass block. And that's really what the Broncos are losing in letting Javonte Williams go to Dallas. I think they can replace his production. I think they can replace the level of receiver out of the backfield that Javonte Williams was. They could certainly get a guy more durable. But Javonte Williams' big skill set that Sean Payton loved was his ability to pass block, and Omarion Hampton can do it. So I really don't have a problem with the Denver Broncos taking Omarion Hampton at number 20 if that's where they go with. But one thing that I have learned covering Sean Payton for these last couple of years, he tries to discredit the mock draft community. He's talked about it ad nauseum. He has some contempt for the people who do mock drafts and say, make these, in his opinion, make things up about what a team needs or doesn't need or what they want or what they're going for. Like, there's some real contempt there. And I'm not saying that Sean Payton would, out of spite, see everyone mocking Omarion Hampton to him and go to George Payton and says, we're not drafting him. But I think what a lot of what Sean Payton has talked about leads me to the idea that Sean Payton is a lot of times of a different mind than those who, and just look at last year. Last year's a pretty good example. There weren't a ton of people who thought that they would use that particular pick on Bo Nix. There's some, but it certainly wasn't the consensus that you're finding now. And he goes out and gets his guy. He doesn't care. So while Omarion Hampton, I think, would be a great addition to the Denver Broncos, I kind of don't think that's where the Broncos are actually going. There is no position in this draft that is deeper than running back. And there are levels to this, right? Ashton Genty's number one. Omarion Hampton is cementing himself as the second, and every day that goes by, he's closer to Ashton Genty than Travion Henderson is to Hampton. Right? He's shooting up draft boards just like Colston Loveland just a few weeks ago was shooting up draft boards, and they're like, the Broncos are going to try and get this guy no matter what. And now look, Loveland's falling because the Broncos have their joker tight end. If I told you that the Denver Broncos would end up with something else and Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, something else and Cam Scattaboo from Arizona State, something else and Devin Neal from Kansas, I know those guys aren't necessarily better than Omarion Hampton, but if you can get something else to help your team and play the draft board a little bit and exploit depth at a certain position, part of the reason why Sean Payton got Bo Nix is because other quarterbacks were already taken, and you can believe him that he had Bo Nix second or third all you want. But the fact of the matter is there weren't many quarterbacks left when the Broncos were drafting. If the Broncos don't take a running back at 20, there will be others available. And for the first time in many years, certainly the first time that Sean and George Paton have been together, they have the ability to play the draft with all of their draft capital. So maybe me saying something else and Devin Neal actually doesn't sound better than Amarion Hampton. Let me pose a different scenario. Because I could see the Broncos kind of going one of two ways. Because I don't think, given the rhetoric that surrounds this team right now, that they would be overly eager to trade back. I think George Paton might like them to trade back. I don't think Sean Payton would necessarily want them to trade back. I think he'd be looking to say, look, and we'll see how they evaluate the draft board, but I got to imagine at 20, they feel like we can get somebody that could potentially help us immediately. And why would we forego that to move back? I know everything after 18, they're all the same. I don't know that I would expect the Broncos to trade back. It's possible. I don't think it's their number one goal here. What if, and I said this when Evan Ingram signed, I'm not closing the door on a tight end for the Denver Broncos. I'm not. What if Tyler Warren is available? Just throwing it out there. What if he's available at 15? Broncos have all of their draft capital. Maybe they say, we'll take our 1, we'll take a 3. We'll bundle them together. We'll move up a few spots. We'll get Tyler Warren. We still got pick 50, and we'll get our running back then. What about McMillan from Arizona? I saw a mock draft last night that had him going to the Rams. Why people are done talking about wide receivers? Like, I'm sorry. I'm just not buying that the Denver Broncos are not looking at wide receiver because they love Devon Vele and Troy Franklin so much. Now, they may like them. They may not be giving up on them. But if McMillan, I mentioned Egbuka before, Emeka Egbuka, he's a wide receiver, sure hands, blocks. But what if McMillan from Arizona is around at 15? I could see the Broncos going up and relying on the depth at the running back position. Now, I'm not talking about the Broncos waiting till day 3 to get a running back. All I'm saying is there something else that you can get at 20 or something you could get in the first round and be able to come back and get a running back that you feel pretty good about? And the way I'm looking at this class, that's kind of the way I see it. Scatterboo isn't better than Hampton. Neal isn't better than Hampton. But can you get something else and be content with a running back that may not be as good as Amarion Hampton? And let's say they don't trade up. Let's say Tyler Warren isn't available there. Or McMillan isn't available there as a number 2 receiver opposite Cortland Sutton. So you can't really move up. You stay at 20. I know the Broncos want to pay Zach Allen. But if you can get somebody like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M that can right now give you depth and then maybe make it so you don't have to pay Zach Allen, like if there is another position that the Broncos or a best player available, and I think that's the biggest part of this. is that the Denver Broncos have addressed so many of their needs already that they're in a really good position. Right? They don't have to reach. They have needs still, but I'm saying what many people identify as their biggest quote unquote need right now, there's a lot of guys that they could pick from and guys that you don't have to take at 20. So I think that the Broncos are in a really good spot to be able to do some things and not just go the way that conventional wisdom says they should go. I mean, we have to see how the draft board falls, right? Because there aren't many guys that I am going to hold this possibility open for, right? Tyler Warren is one of them. McMillan is one of them. Stewart, I think, is one of them. But if all these guys get picked and then, then Omarion Hampton makes more and more sense. But I think that the Broncos, especially with George Paton's confidence in the draft and what he's been able to do a little bit later in the draft, I got to imagine he looks at the depth at the running back position and is letting Sean Payton know, like, if you love a guy, okay, but I'm just telling you, like, there are multiple guys here that I think would work well. I mean, they are having the running back out of Texas in for a visit. I think they're really diving into the depth in this running back class. And if they come back and decide it's not as deep as people think that it is, then okay. But if it's as deep as we all think it is, then I think the Broncos would look elsewhere. The way that McMillan is now starting to move down, I mean, I don't know that I can fully believe it, but if he is, I mean, you want to talk about the Broncos having a perfect situation fall into their lap, because I still think they could use another wide receiver. And you get the best one in the draft. So I don't know that I buy it. I don't think we have the Denver Broncos figured out a month away. And I was skeptical about everyone going the Colston Loveland route. Just like, I don't know. I think Sean Payton thinks a little bit differently than some of these draft nicks. And I think with George Payton's skill set in drafting, I think they might be able to identify somebody in the next tier of running backs that they can be like, we could get this guy and get something else at 20. Maximizing, I think it's part of the draft, maximizing the draft capital that you have. I think the Broncos will be looking to do that. And taking the second best running back available in a running back heavy draft just doesn't. Marion Hampton would be good, be a good pick. I think there's a loftier goal here for the Denver Broncos or something more. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7, 1313. The three stories that are driving the show coming your way next. Well, hello there. Welcome in Wednesday edition of Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you. Pleasure to have you, whether you're listening on air or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or whether you're watching on our social media platforms. I do indeed appreciate it. If you would like to interact with the show, you can do so by texting or calling into 719-247-1313, or you can tweet me at Gingerly Tweets. Right now, let's get going with the three stories that are driving the show, shall we? All right, story number one. They just keep chugging along.
Centering feed for Natchez all the way over for Drouin. A one-timer block. McKinnon got his own rebound. He shoots and scores into a wide-open net. The Mac attack is back, Jack. Just another multi-point night for Nathan McKinnon on home ice.
Connor McGahee on the call, Altitude Radio as heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. The Avs have now won 10 straight at Ball Arena as they take down the Detroit Red Wings 5-2 last night. And it's no wonder why this team would very much, if they can help it, have home ice for as long as they possibly can in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But we saw this play out last year with the Denver Nuggets. The pursuit of such things can come at a cost and can ultimately cost you. So when I see how hard the Avs are playing and how clearly they are motivated to win as many games as they can down the stretch to get home ice in that first round series against Dallas, I worry, is Jared Bednar repeating the mistakes of Michael Malone? He's not. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and Devon Taves, all, for example, have all seen their amount of ice time be reduced over the last, well, let's just call it for what it is, since the trades. All of their playing time is going down. Jared Bednar is learning from Michael Malone's mistakes, if he had to learn from them. He may have already had this in his mind, but he is doing things that you may not notice, but he's doing things with an eye on the postseason. Saying, I'm not going, all this depth I have is amazing. If I wear this guy out, if I wear out number 8, we're not going anywhere. But what allows him to do that while still winning hockey games and still pursuing home ice in the first round is the depth that Chris McFarland has provided him, which was a big reason why Chris McFarland did everything that he did to remake this team. You know, the where depth really helps you is the regular season, especially now, to be able to rely on depth and like, I don't have to play my biggest and best players and I can still expect to win games. That's a luxury that Michael Malone doesn't have. I mean, the Nuggets haven't imploded without Nikola Jokic over the last few games, but they lost to Chicago. They lost to Portland last week. Like, they're not, certainly put those two teams next to each other. One is doing exceedingly better than the other, despite having an eye on the postseason and trying to protect their best players' health. They're both doing the right thing. It's just that Malone has to turn to Peyton Watson and DeAndre Jordan and Russell Westbrook and Jared Bednar can turn to Brock Nelson and, Valeri Nichushkin and Charlie Coyle and so on and so forth. Although Val was on the top line last night, Natchez was on the second line. But it's the depth that this team has that is allowing Jared Bednar to do this. Now, that depth will be less important when the playoffs roll around. Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon will play 25 minutes a night. They'll be out there every moment that Jared Bednar can get them out there. But all the more reason to save them as much as you can down the stretch. And I don't know if they're going to catch Dallas. Those 2 games in hand are just screaming at me every time I look at the NHL standings. I don't know how the Avs get around that. But hey, if it keeps this team motivated, if it keeps this team playing at a high level through the end of the regular season without burning out the eventual back-to-back Hart Trophy winner, I'm all for it. And that's the best of both worlds that Jared Bednar is enjoying right now. Story number 2 today, Kay Adams stirring stuff up once again when it comes to the Denver Broncos, talking to Von Miller, asking him if he'd like to come back to the Denver Broncos. Von Miller said, "I've always loved blue and orange. You just have to see. It's a fun time right now for me in my career. You just have to wait and see. Take it one day at a time." It would be a great story. And it would be fulfilling for those of you who have held out hope since the moment the Broncos traded Von Miller that they would get him back someday. And Von Miller has strung you along a little bit. Let's be honest about this. He's played on your emotions a little bit, although I take him at his word. I think he went through a lot as a Denver Bronco. He matured as a player. Remember the issues that he had when he first came into the league. So, and we see a lot of former Broncos that rave about that organization in the city and the fan base and everything like that. So I don't think Von Miller is being disingenuous. I'm just saying he's not helping Bronco fans move on when he says such things. I don't see the football reason for bringing him in. I don't. You have plenty at that position. You have a guy in Nick Bonito that now you got to start wondering if you're going to pay him Von Miller money. You just drafted Jonah Ellis. Don't you want to see more of him? You signed Jonathan Cooper. In a vacuum, it would be great to see Von Miller back in a Broncos uniform. But you only have so many roster spots. You only have so much salary cap space. And the Broncos don't have a need there. And I think, and I say this as a compliment to the Broncos, they're beyond this kind of story. If they feel like Von Miller can really help them, like produce on the field and make them a better football team, even at the expense of, say, a Jonah Ellis in his development, then it's a different story. But what kind of Von Miller do you think that you'd be getting in Denver? DeAndre Tillman had as many sacks as he did last year. He's just not, and it just happens. He's not the player he once was. He's not the player he was 2 years ago. So somebody has to explain to me how Von Miller makes the Denver Broncos better at a position where they have as much talent as they do in any other position group on their team. They're good. They don't need this. So once Von Miller retires, I expect the Denver Broncos to make him a major, Have him supplant Peyton Manning as the global Bronco ambassador, if you want. Retire his number. Certainly put him in the Ring of Fame. Make him a special assistant to George Payton. Like, roll out the red carpet. Treat this guy like a king. Reward him for bringing a Super Bowl to this team. But you're beyond this type of story for late in the year. Late in his career, I mean. This team is trying to unseat a dynasty. And I think at that position, they got all they need. Doesn't seem like smart asset management. As much as it would be a feel-good story. And it would. I don't see it. Story number 3 is that Air Force hockey coach Frank Serratore not going anywhere. 2-year extension announced by the Academy earlier today. And I know that Frank Serratore is at, a stage in his career. He's not, somebody that's going to be wanting to, go elsewhere probably. Like, he's not one of these young and upcoming coaches. I'm just saying, juxtapose what is going on right now in college sports, especially college basketball. And some of the coaches that are going. To see a program of any kind in college sports have the continuity that Air Force will continue to have, it's certainly nice to see, and a bit of a change of pace. And Frank Serratore has certainly earned the right to be done, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but he's earned the right to be done with Air Force when he says, right? It's going to be on his own terms. As long as he wants to coach, Air Force should keep him coaching. Because if you listen to him on the post-game shows on this station, or you listen to his coach's show, or you've been out to the rink, or you've met him at one of these coaches' shows, dude certainly has the energy to keep coaching. And I think I suspect, first and foremost, I think it's the love of what he does and having the energy still to get up every day and do it. But I also think he sees something that maybe there's one more run left in Air Force hockey before he calls it a career. I think he wants to see this group. And one of the biggest positives of this year for Air Force was the way that their freshmen started to emerge as that season wore on. I think he would like to see maybe this class through and get them to a certain point. I saw this with Chris Gobrecht a little bit. Like, with the women's basketball program, I think she got it to a place where there was kind of a pipeline of talent, and then with Stacey McIntyre potentially taking over, I think she looked at it and said, all right, the work is done here. I've put the program in a spot that they can sustain themselves moving forward. And I think maybe Frank Serratore wants to get Air Force hockey to that place before he lets it go. I don't think that's his primary driver. Again, I think he loves what he does. And he loves doing it at the Air Force Academy. But I think when you get near the end of your career, whether that be 2 years, a year, 5 years, you start thinking about, okay, where do I want to leave this program? And I think that plays into it. But the biggest thing is, it's just great that Frank Serratore is going to be on the Air Force bench for a couple more years at least. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show, and we'll continue with Drive Time Sports right after this. Nuggets and Bucks tonight. Nuggets heavy favorites. I just saw the line flash across my screen. -10.5. No Giannis. No Dame. Jokic has been upgraded to questionable. And why would you do such a thing if you weren't going to put him back out on the court? So we'll see. But the main thing, I think, why the line is moved the way it did, or where it's at right now, no Giannis, no Dame. But you know the Nuggets as well as I do. I would stay away from the game. Because these are the type of games where sometimes they play with their food a little bit. But we'll see what happens. You could hear it at 7 o'clock right here on Extra Sports 1300. See if Jokic makes his return to the lineup. The NFL is pushing forward with some of these suggested rule changes. The big one, I feel like there's an agenda here. Because of these potential rule changes, let me just, I don't want to lead you. So I'm going to name, there are 5 potential rule changes. And I want you to think of which one is more interesting to you, most interesting. Okay? Making a touchback go out 5 yards further off a kickoff, to normalize overtime rules and make the one where both teams get the ball that you have in the playoffs, have that during the regular season. Expand instant replay's ability to advise the on-field officials on specific objective aspects of a play. I think this has to do with maybe personal foul penalties, like you can look and see if, but just expanding instant replay. So making the touchback more punitive, making the postseason overtime rules, the regular season overtime rules, expand instant replay, eliminate automatic first down as a penalty imposed for defensive holding and illegal contact, or the tush push. Which one of those are you most interested in? And if you had to rank them, kickoff, overtime, instant replay, defensive holding and illegal contact first downs, or the tush push, how would you rank those? Here's my point. Why is the headline about the kickoff rule? I so don't care. This is why it feels like there's an agenda. The NFL very clearly does not want you to go to your refrigerator between the 2 commercial breaks they place on either side of the kickoff, or to get a jump on the commercial break that's going to happen after the kickoff. They want you to sit there and tune in so they could bring you a 30-second message from Verizon and know that you're being a captive audience, because maybe, just maybe, you're going to get a kickoff return. I'm not going to stay locked in for the kickoff. Ever. Again. Never. I don't care. You can move it up 5 yards, whatever. They did this last year where they said with the landing zone and its XFL, the teams are going to run back kicks. Dante Hall, Eric Metcalf, Raheem Ishmael, it's going to Devin Hester. I don't know why I mentioned Hester last. He should have been first. You're going to see these guys star once again. And right, it was, Marvin Mims. Watch Marvin Mims. What did every single NFL team do? Okay, kick out of the back of the end zone. Moving it up, touchback up 5 more yards of field position. They're going to have to put that ball on the 50 after a touchback to get teams to not just kick it out of the back of the end zone. This is just, it's the NFL just wanting everything. They have almost everything. They want everything. We are more locked in to an NFL game than we are any other sporting event that you could possibly put in front of us. We care more about it. We pay more than any other sport to go watch it on television. We pay for Red Zone. We do the fantasy football. We bet more on football than any other sport. We are so locked in to football in a way we are not locked into any other sport, and yet they still want that little bit more. I don't care about the kickoff. When they introduced the dynamic kickoff, I was like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And it looked like it came from the XFL. I really don't care what they're doing with this thing. I don't think it's going to deter teams from kicking out of the back of the end zone. I don't. So when you ask me to rank which of these potential rule changes that I am most interested in last place is the dynamic kickoff. I have stronger feelings about all of these other things. Do whatever you want with the kickoff. Because you're never going to do it to where it's because you have to balance safety. You want them to run more, but you're never going to be able to institute a rule that will go against player safety. And this doesn't go against player safety. Right? They're encouraging you to keep it within the field of play, but they're not doing something that, we're going to put a net up like the arena football and you're going to have to play it off the net and run no matter what. You still have the option to kick out of the back of the end zone. They're never going to do something that will make people, after the player safety, all of that, in concussions, they're never going to be able to institute a rule that will automatically lead to teams returning kicks. They just won't. So do what you want. I don't care. I care much more about these other ones. The best rule change, because you know where I stand on the tush push. I think it's okay. Do it. I don't care. Not going to want to change this whole rule for one team. So I disagree with banning it. I say leave it. The one that is not getting nearly enough publicity here, that should, suggested by the Lions, so shouts to the Lions, to eliminate an automatic first down on a defensive holding or illegal contact, that is a massive game changer. And a rule change I am 100% in favor of. That call being an automatic first down is annoying. Pass interference, I get, right? Automatic first down. But if it's happening 5 yards down I don't like when it's an automatic first down for those penalties that are, in the grand scheme of things, minor. Now, the defensive holding sounds worse, but you just call pass interference. right? You call pass interference and it's going to be an automatic first down. We're talking about these 5-yard penalties that also result on a 3rd and 15. You pick up a 5-yard penalty and it's an automatic first down. No. That is a great rule change suggestion. And also notice, it's funny too. So Philadelphia proposed normalizing the overtime rules, which, by the way, also very much in favor of. So good on the Eagles. Notice that the teams are the ones that are suggesting, except for the Packers, they're whiny about the tush push. But you have the Eagles proposing normalizing overtime rules. You have Detroit proposing eliminating automatic first downs for illegal contact and defensive holding. And they're great ideas. And then what's coming from the competition committee? The stupid kickoff thing and an expanding instant replay. 2 things that I am either apathetic about or hate. The kickoff rule, do whatever you want. Don't care. And it's not going to change anything. The normalizing the overtime rules, I would vote yes. I like the overtime rules in the playoffs. Why not put in the regular season? Instant replay, no. I don't want to expand instant replay in any way, shape, or form. Yes, eliminating automatic first downs for illegal contact. And leave the tush push alone. That's where I stand. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. On another note, let's talk about feeling your best, shall we? If you don't feel that same energy, strength, maybe you're feeling moody or it seems you've lost your drive with your partner, it could be low testosterone. Only way you're going to know is if you get your levels checked, and the best place to do it is Low T Center. It's fast and easy, and if you find out that it is low testosterone, know that you're in the absolute best place to get personalized therapy. Other places, they're just one-size-fits-all standard, do this. Not Low T Center. They customize it for you, which is what we love these days, right? We like everything customized. Well, Low T Center will customize testosterone replacement therapy for you. So go to lowtcenter.com to book an appointment. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare. Friday. I'll be out at Trainwreck, 812 South Sierra Madre. Would love to see you out there. Great place to watch, well, any type of sporting event, but obviously the big draw of the evening will be the round of 16. Be bringing prizes along with me. You could check out the golf simulators, all the games they have outdoors. Great menu, great drink menu as well. Come out and see me. 3 to 5, Friday, Trainwreck, 812, South Sierra Madre. NFL going forward with these potential rule changes, which ones do you care about? Where they put the touchback, that the overtime rules in the regular season match those in the postseason. No tush push, no automatic first downs for defensive holding and illegal contact. Expanding instant replay. What say you? Albert says the Detroit Lions received the most penalties in the last 5 years for defensive pass interference and holding the receiver. I didn't say that these rule changes weren't self-serving. A good idea can still be self-serving. But it does make more sense than the Packers of all teams wanting to eliminate the tush push. Like, you would think that would be the Commanders. Hey, you know what? Give it a shot. I still think it's a good idea. I'd still like it to apply to everybody. From the 719, as for the tush push, needs to be legal or illegal for both offense and defense. Currently illegal for defense because of safety. Why is it safe for just offense? Not saying tush push should be illegal, but both sides of the ball should have the same rule. And to that, I say I wholeheartedly agree with you. Let's shove dudes with larger dudes in all three phases. I'm all for it. I am. I do think that there is an inequity when it comes to this rule. And I would prefer the alternative be you're going to get behind Jalen Hurts and push him. We're going to get behind our defensive tackle and push him. I'd be 100% up for that. And let's get back to jumping over guys to try and block field goals. I understand protecting the guy who's snapping the ball. Okay, he's got his head down, whatever. You're going to jump over him. Something bad could happen. Everyone else can jump. Am I trying to make the NFL less safe? No, because I say eliminate the kickoff rule entirely. So I balance it out. No kickoffs. No onside kicks. Do the 4th and 10 that you have to convert to keep the ball. I agree. I think that's a great. Eagles don't have to give up that play that they love oh so much. But now you're giving the defense the ability to try and counteract it. And then we'll really see how effective this play is. I'm all for that. You know why the NFL won't do it? And why they're not going to do the Detroit Lions suggestion either. They don't want to give the defense any advantage, or at least even the playing field. They don't want to. They want points. They want offense. But that's a great suggestion. Couple of things. Jokic, Gordon, all signs, according to Michael Malone, point to them playing tonight for the Denver Nuggets. So you won't get Giannis, you won't get Dame, but you may get Nikola Jokic back. So just that, Nuggets cannot lose tonight. Cannot. This should be one of those games that you take care of business. Okay? Some way, somehow, no Giannis, no Dame, you should win. Michael Malone's going insane because he's erring on the side of caution with all these guys who are banged up and hurt. And then the team he throws out there can't beat Chicago or Portland. Throw Michael Malone a bone here. Take care of the Milwaukee Bucks. But maybe that Michael Malone's stacking the deck a little bit by bringing Gordon and Jokic back. So there's that. If you tuned in yesterday, we wondered what Russell Wilson's new catchphrase would be. Would you like to hear it? Of course you would. Who wouldn't like to hear it? Here's Russell Wilson just a little bit ago. Go Big Blue. Anybody have that? Anybody have that? Go Big Blue. I think the most disappointing thing about the end of the Russell Wilson era is that his catchphrases have gotten worse. What do you even say with the Steelers? Steeler Nation, let's be okay. I don't remember what he said, honestly. Uh, he should just. I texted him yesterday about you shouldn't do Let's Ride. You should do Let's Ride all the time. Big Blue, Let's Ride. Steeler Nation, Let's Ride. Broncos Country, Let's Ride. Lean into it. It's actually, I think if Russell Wilson would just lean into it and understand how embarrassing the Broncos Let's Ride was, I think it would actually do more for him if he just leaned into it. It's like, yep, now every place Let's Ride. Steeler Nation, Let's Ride. It's not about Broncos. I'm not talking about horses. Just my catchphrase is Let's Ride. I almost feel like it would be better than him trying to calculate it in his head. I mean, how long did it take him? How long did he think of it? Was it the car ride over? Was it as somebody hit record on the phone? Did he make it did he consider what his catchphrase would be when he was making his decision to go to the Giants? Like, well, if I go to the Giants, they might draft Shador, but Go Big Blue is a pretty good catchphrase. If I go to Cleveland, I might be the starter, but I don't know what catchphrase is, which would be a huge miss on his part because Cleveland, let's rock. Come on, man. Why didn't you go to Cleveland? says I just heard his new saying is "Let's go Giants, let's win a game." Maybe. Hey, Big Blue, let's hit the over under for the Giants. There's 3.5. An unserious man joining up with an unserious organization. I suppose that they are a good match. He also said he expects to be the star. Yeah, the Giants must really be worried that they're not. If they sign up, let's say Cam Ward goes and Travis Hunter goes to, because the only exception that I am making to any quarterback meeting for not drafting either Cam Ward or Sanders is if they can get Travis Hunter. So let's say Cam Ward goes to Tennessee, Cleveland takes Travis Hunter. They cannot pass on Shador Sanders, even for Abdul Carter, who I do like. They must draft Shador Sanders. What they're so worried about. They must think that Cleveland's taking them. That's not right. Even if the team moves up, the Giants are one spot away. You can't move up one spot. And you tell the Browns we're taking Shador, and the Browns can say, wait a minute, that means we get Travis Hunter? No sense. No sense whatsoever. But that should be Russell Wilson. Giants country. None of it makes sense. Giants nation. None of it makes sense. You see, now we're all waiting for Aaron Rodgers. This is exactly what he wants. You would think, okay, enough is enough. Aaron Rodgers has the Steelers. Nah, he's waiting until the draft. He wants, he's waiting until he can be mentioned on night one of the draft. And then, only then, will he finally stop holding the Steelers hostage and go ahead and nowhere else for him to go. Oh, two quarterbacks. Broncos desperate. Not one can get the other. Sometimes it works out for the best. Before I go, low T, just want to reiterate that you should get your levels checked if you are not feeling that same energy drive. Maybe you're a little bit quick, like 20 minutes, get the results back. And if testosterone therapy is the answer, you know you're with true experts at low T center. Don't settle for a standard dosage TRT plan that you might find. Get personalized therapy at Low T Center. Go to lowtcenter.com and book an appointment. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center. Reinvent men's healthcare. It's been my distinct honor to serve you. I appreciate your patronage. Nuggets and Bucks at 7. And then we'll meet back here tomorrow at 3 and talk about it. Sweet 16 starts tomorrow as well here on Extra Sports.